Really?
Right. Parashat Shoftim deals between the internal law and to the judge inside of us. It's a very powerful parasha, especially when we're talking about the spiritual aspect of the parasha. Parashat Shoftim starts with a commandment that seems from in the first glance somewhat technical, right? It says Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha bechol sha'arecha, right? You should put judges and officers or policemen, whatever it is, in all your gates. Where are you going to do so? In the gates in which God gives you to your tribes, and they should judge the people according. They're going to have a judgment of justice. Okay, no, it sounds very good. However, the Torah is not always a guide to making a judicial system over here and so on and so forth. The Torah talks also and mainly about the individual. So if so, there is one question that you could ask, or maybe a totally different question you could ask. Who or what are those judges and call it policemen inside of us? Because if you look at this way, we know that a person, a human being, is like a small kingdom inside himself, right? He has wills, he has desires, he has fears, he has urges, he has memories, he has passion, he has beliefs, and he has different voices that go through his head. And many times they don't really agree with one another. They don't always agree with one another. A person might want something and act completely opposite to what he wants. We always do that. To know what's right for the person, for him, for himself, and to still choose what he knows is bad for him. For example, smoking a cigarette. We all know it's bad for you. People still choose to smoke, or eating unhealthy food and so on and so forth, right? So it could be a time that you know the truth and still run away from it. That's why we need this parasha, and Parashat Shoftim also could read the parasha that deals with one of maybe the greatest challenges and deepest challenges of human existence. How does a person becomes the judge of his life without becoming the tyrant of his own self? The gates that we are talking inside of us, that the Torah emphasizes, bechol sha'arecha, and all your gates, right? So what does it exactly mean? So the gate is a place, is a passage place, right? You go through it, right? Something comes in and something comes out of that. You have to go through the gate, through the doorways, right? So that's basically what it is. From a psychological point of view, you might see those gates as point of entry and exit of the soul itself. Whether it's the eyes, your ears, your thoughts, your speech, your imagination, the memory, your feelings. These are all places that the soul comes out. We live in a world that almost everything is asking to enter our awareness. Everything wants to not only enter your awareness, what?
It's an ask.
But also alter your awareness. And whether it's pictures, advertisements, news, bots of Mandani, all these things. Maybe another person, maybe a sentence that was said to us 20 years ago, childhood memories, fears of the future. The question is, or should I say, the question is not if the world is going to enter our awareness. Because I'm going to tell you this straight out. It will enter your awareness. It would penetrate your own being. But the question is completely different. Who is it going to decide what is actually going to enter, going to stay within me? If you remember in Masechet Avot, it talks about there are 4 different qualities of Talmidim. One of them is like a funnel. Like a funnel, it's you need to be able to apply it. It's not that there's, you are one type and he is one type and he is the other type and so on and so forth. In other words, the Talmid, sometimes you have to have these 4 different abilities within you to process information. You need to understand and you need to determine in your life who is going to decide for you what is going to stay within your awareness. And as you could see today, the awareness of people is changing completely by people who know exactly how to manipulate it. However, people are so stupid that they have no control of what decides, and you all of a sudden you find yourself saying something completely different than what you believed in, and you become a totally different person. And this is where the job of the shofet, of the judge, actually starts. A person that does not apply some kind of what we call shikul da'at, like some kind of like internal assessment, slowly will turn into the result of what came his way. You're going to be the result of what you were exposed to, and instead of choosing, you'll be reacting. Most of the people today react; they don't choose. They forgot how to choose because they always react. You are angry because somebody made you angry. You are afraid because reality, scares you. You hate because you were taught to hate this kind of a person. You want an example of hatred? Go to Gaza. They're teaching the kids from age 0 to kill people. Here we go, right? So, but real human freedom starts exactly in the point when a person is able to stop between the stimuli to the reaction and to be able to say, I don't have to act immediately. I don't have to act immediately. I could judge at this moment, what should I do? That's one of the things they teach you one of the greatest teaching that you can get when you learn martial arts is not how to beat the other person or how to defend yourself. Is you choose when to act and when not to act.
Restraint.
Absolutely. Self-restraint. Today, how do we come to the situation? We were taught, we were conditioned to not practice restraint. To say what you want. People drive, for example, in the cars, they think they live in a world of their own. They are protected. They do all crazy things. And if you show them a picture of how they drive, they're going to say, oh my goodness, who is this lunatic? I say, excuse me, that's you. Right? Telephone, please. So now, and so this is basically one of the greatest idea of existential psychology. A person is not only what happens to him, but he is also the way he chooses to stand in front of what is happening to him. How you stand in front of what happens to you. How do you carry yourself over? The internal judge, when we're talking about internal judge, right? And together with this internal job, there is a new danger. If inside the person there is a judge, who judges the judge? Where is your checks and balances? Who judges the judge? We all know the internal voice that says to us, you're not good enough, you failed, how could you have done such a thing? Everybody is more successful than you, everybody is already married and you're not, and so on and so forth. You're not going to be, it's too late for you. You're not going to be who you wanted to be. This is what we call the internal judge. But he's not necessarily what we call shofet tzedek. He's not the justice judge. He judges you, but he doesn't do the justice with you. Sometimes this judge is a result of too much of a critical parent. You have a parent that always criticizes you. Sometimes it's a society that is an extremely restrictive and demanding society, that you can express your own freedom and so on and so forth. You see it many times, among, Hasidic communities or communities that are so, until the person says, you know what, excuse me, please stop, I'm out of here. It happens many times. It could come from a trauma, or from an old failure, or an ideal, or impossible ideal that the person had put for himself, and it's beyond his abilities to reach. Some kind of a crazy ideal that,
Yeah.
I had a guy that I knew, not a friend, a guy that I knew, was in the Air Force. He was a very good technical person. Very good. He knew how to solve problems. He knew how to take the plane apart and put it together. He used to do everything. He was a pen chief, like where they put the planes in the. But he wanted to be a pilot. He tried so hard, and at the end was devastated with the fact that he just didn't be a pilot. He had a tremendous career to become a technical officer. Tremendous. But no, he wanted to become a pilot. He couldn't. He applied, they reapplied, and applied, they reapplied. At the end, he was devastated. It's an ideal that is beyond your reach. So sometimes that happens to us, and that things that eats us all the time, this inside of you. So that's why the Torah comes and tells you, Shoftim, right? The Torah does not say Shoftim. It says Shoftim veShotrim. Officers and judges. And there is a tremendous point here. The judge tells you what is right and what is wrong. The officer's job is to execute or to worry that decision of the judge will take place. That's what he does. But if a person who is healthy, spiritually and mentally is healthy, he needs both of them. Why? Because he needs the balance between the two. But if there's only a judge, a person thinks and thinks and thinks and thinks and thinks and thinks and never acts.
Yeah.
And if there's only an officer, a person operates from oppression, right? He operates out of fear. He operates out of impulse or habits. So life needs awareness that is able to distinguish between power that could execute the understanding into a reality. What you need to do, and to make sure that you actually do it. When there is a gap between what you know you need to do to what you actually did, that's when the problem starts. This is when you start to fall apart. That's when you start to fall apart. Now the Torah also tells us, Lo tateh mishpat. Not only shoftim veShotrim, in which they're going to judge us, appropriately. Also, you should not lean or not pervert the judgment itself. In other words, the guy is rich, the guy is poor. I don't care if the guy is poor, he's being thrown in the street, he's homeless. If the landlord is right, the landlord is right. That's it, done deal. Not like in New York or anywhere else today in the United States. All of a sudden, the guys, and I knew a guy who had a renter. Somebody rented, the house from him. 5 years he didn't pay him. 5 years he didn't pay. It took them 5 years to throw him out. Finally, he threw him out. He owed so much money because the guy didn't pay. He owed so much money he had to sell it just to cover up the loss that he had on the property. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So the judgment is a judgment, and the Torah says, "Lo tateh mishpat, lo takir panim." In other words, "Velo tikach shochad." They don't take bribery. In other words, you don't say, "Oh, favorite, poor guy." Let's say it's okay. The guy is rich. Like exactly what happens today in America is exactly what should not happen. For example, I'll give you an example. Why should the rich person be taxed more than a regular guy or poor person? It should be a flat tax to everybody. Aren't we equal? Why should I get penalized because I'm making more money than you? If I was willing to sacrifice whatever it took for me to sacrifice to become a wealthy person, and instead of you You, instead of working hard, decided to spend every Rosh Chodesh at Cancun sipping pina colada, in the moonlight. Why should I be penalized and you're not? I don't understand why. It should be flat. That's called an unjust society. We should take care of the people who are not capable, poor, and so on and so forth. But to penalize those who are successful, guess what? I'm out of here, buddy. I'm going to go to, where did I go? Cayman Island. That's it. Goodbye. I'm out of here.
Makes sense.
Sure.
You have no choice at that point.
That's right. That's right. So now, so when we says lo tikach shochad, don't take bribery. So we can read this verse as a guide to understand how our soul is being diverted from here to here. In other words, most people always automatically like the underdog. Yeah. If you want to have a lot of power, make yourself into the underdog. When the Jews were the underdog, everybody liked them. When the Jews became strong, they're not the underdog, everybody hates them. They take up another underdog, even though they're murderous, bloodthirsty people. The underdog, we like underdogs. It shows you that you internally, spiritually, are not well and not balanced. A person is not an objective judge of himself. We always tend to justify ourselves. We always tend to remember what is easy for us to remember. We always like to make the failures of others, to magnify the failures of others and to really minimize our failures. And that's why one of the greatest spiritual points is to teach to look at ourselves without being fake, which is very, very difficult. Not to make yourself too great. In other words, become like a grandiose, and don't also make yourself into to humiliate yourself to a point that you have no self-esteem, but rather to see. And what we're talking about to see is to see lirot be'emet, to truthfully see. And maybe this is the most difficult thing to do, because to see yourself truthfully means to really to give up the narrative in which you tell yourself about yourself. The stories that you tell yourself. And one of the worst one to tell stories about you is mommy. To tell yourself the truth. For example, you know what? Argument's sake, I'm not good. I'm not good at math. Argument's sake. I love math. But let's say I'm not good at math. So I have a choice now. I need to make a choice. I need to be responsible. Do I want to become good in math, or I want to stay bad in math? No, I want to become good. Okay, so sit down. So sit down and learn math. Everybody could learn math. I'm not talking about, math of like you learn it like when you get a PhD in algorithm. No, I'm just, math, to be able to algebra without a doubt. Everybody can. The problem is nobody wants.
Sit down and learn.
Nobody, exactly. So now, when we are talking about bribery, there is also type of bribery. And we always talk about bribery, about bakshish, like in the Levant, everything is like bribery. And here too, And by the way, we're becoming kind of Levantine ourselves. Look at what Qatar is doing all over to America, like giving shochad, payouts, bribery to everybody. That we're becoming Middle Eastern at the end of the days. So the Torah says why you should not take shochad. Because it says, Ki ha-shochad ya'aver einei chachamim, will make the wise men blind. Bribery will make you blind. Now you should know that bribery not necessarily, it usually is money, but not necessarily money. The will to receive confirmation from everybody else is also bribery. Fear is also bribery. Love could also be bribery.
Yeah.
Even your ego is a type of bribery. A person knows that he needs to say the truth, but the truth might hurt his image, might affect the narrative, the image in which he created to himself. For example, he knows he needs to leave a certain place, but he's afraid of the unknown. Maybe he knows he needs to apologize, but his ego says, not you, don't give up, man. Why should you apologize? Comes the Torah, tells you, listen, right now, by the way, which is amazing to me. We are with Chodesh Elul, and everybody forgets. This is the biggest Nisayon. Right now, it's hot. It's vacation time. Everybody wants to go to, I don't know, where did we say everybody's going? Cancun, vacation, Israel, Shmizrael, North Carolina, South Carolina, whatever it is. Rabotai, we're a month from Yom Adin. A month from Yom Adin.
Yeah.
If you had, Chaz v'shalom, God forbid, you had a trial that you might go in for 30 years, a month before, you will not be going to Cancun. I guarantee you that. Or vacation. You will come in and you'll pray day and night. And not only that, you're going to pay people to pray for you. So, by the way, how long are you going? Cancun?
Till Sunday.
From Sunday to Sunday?
Monday to Sunday.
Monday to Sunday. What are you going to do there on Shabbat, honey?
I don't know.
All right, I'm going to give you a list. All right. So now, and that's why maybe the biggest bribery is the need or the will of the person to continue to be, in his eyes, to do the right thing. Whatever I'm doing is right. In other words, I'm always right. You can never say, listen, I was wrong. I'm sorry, I was wrong. It doesn't make a difference. That's the greatest need of the person. He's not looking for the truth. He is looking for confirmation to the story that he already built, to a narrative in which he already created. And from this point of view, working on your midot, working on your qualities, is really an effort to bring yourself back the ability to see things the right way. And we did say one of the famous psukim, tzedek, tzedek tirdof. Justice you should chase, you should pursue. Of course, why does justice says twice? There's many explanations for that, one better than the other. But we could see a double demand. It's not enough to want justice. You also need to see in which way you reach this justice. You could fight for justice or for freedom and turn yourself into an unjust person. You could do this also. You need to stay moral. You could speak in the name of the truth and yet humiliate another person. You could demand musar, virtues, and still be cruel. That's why the Torah does not just say to you tzedek, it says tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. The goal should be the right goal, and so is the way to reach the goal, should be the right way to reach the goal. And this is true also when we're talking about ourselves as well. A person could want to change, but if he hates himself along the way, this change will become punishment, and therefore he would never change. Judaism does not demand from a person to ruin himself or to destroy himself in order to get better. It demands from himself, from the Jew, to take responsibility and to move forward. Then we get, of course, in this week's parasha, we also talk about the king. Very good, Idan, very good. It's your parasha, right? Mine is next week. So, the king. The question is, who is really running the show? Who is running the show by you? And it says over there, Som tasim alecha melech. You should not appoint a king upon you. So, from an internal point of view, the king is only the question. The king is a question. The question is, who is really managing, who is running my life? Is it fear? Is my king the fear? Certain people, the king is their fear. They live out of fear. King is the negative. They're negative. Negativity runs their life. Is the need to confirmation from everybody. Everybody needs to say, oh wow, you did a good job. Oh wow, you did a good job. This need to confirmation all the time, maybe that's your king. That's what runs your life. Or maybe anger. People are motivated by anger. They like to be angry. Or people like to hate. There's certain people who need some figure in their lives to hate. If they don't hate something, they don't feel good. There are some people, seriously. There's some people like this. That's like the need for a villain. Doesn't make a difference who it is. Or maybe your past is your king. Maybe you're motivated by your own past. People are run by their past. Or maybe it's possible that the man himself, a person himself, could become the king of his life. Maybe it's possible. In other words, you run your life. But the Torah, or maybe another person, but the Torah limits the king also. The Torah says, listen, with all due respect, Mr. King, you have limitations as well. Right? The king is not the complete owner of the people. He does not own the people. He bounds to the Torah. There's a set of laws that he is obligated to keep. It's not like, I'll do what I want. It's good to be the king, one of Mel Brooks kind of a thing. We're not talking about this. The Torah says no. He has to keep Shabbat. He has to pray. He has to do all the things everybody else does.
More than everybody.
Even more than everybody else. And it's a very deep idea, because even when a person becomes the king of himself, he cannot say, listen, I'll do what I want. Nobody will tell me what to do. Nobody will tell me what to do. I can tell you for a fact, most people need somebody to tell them what to do all their lives. They think they do. They don't. They don't. In the motorcycle world culture, that concept is called an outlaw. An outlaw is not a person who is a criminal. An outlaw is a person who does not need confirmation all the time for what he does. As George Christie said, Jesse James was an outlaw, and so was Albert Einstein. Most people are not. Most people are fakers. They're imitators. So, true freedom is not lack of boundaries or limitations. True freedom is the ability to choose the limits, the boundaries that would allow me to be really who truthfully I am. And that is a very difficult thing to do, because unfortunately nobody teaches us how to do so, nor we teach our children to do it. However, this is the biggest difference between freedom and anarchy. We have time.
17 minutes.
Okay, let's see. I don't know if we can do it. So let's talk a little bit about Kabbalah. I know you guys like Kabbalah, so let's talk about Kabbalah. You're interested in Kabbalah over there, Shimono's brothers? Come, done eating, come sit next to us. So the Kabbalah talks about the gates. In Kabbalah, the gates of the Sferot. And we can go a little deeper here. The world of Kabbalah describes the person as an apparatus of forces. The Sferot are not just a cosmic structure, but also a language to understand the person himself. So, for example, Chesed is the ability to give. Gvura is the ability to put boundaries, to stay within the boundaries. Tiferet is the ability to balance between Chesed and Gvura. And maybe here we can find the biggest messages of this Parshat Shoftim. A person that does not have Gvura, and we see it all the time, that's how the Shulchan Aruch starts it, Gaber Ka'ari, right? Is first of all, Gaber Ka'ari, and if you pay attention to what I'm telling you now, a lot of things are going to be understood to you with this. So a person that does not have the Gvura says yes to everything. Yeah. You want to do drugs? Yes. You want to do this? Yes. You want to do this? Yes. You want to go to Yeshiva? Yes. Everything? Yes, yes, yes. Right? A person that does not have Chesed always says no to everything. No, 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 right? A complete person, a whole person, needs both of them. The Gvura says, until now. The Chesed says, maybe a little bit more. The Tiferet asks, okay, so what's the right thing to do now? Almost like a computer program, right? Yeah. Like a flow chart, right? You go here, and I want to go here. And if we go here, what's going to be here? You know where you get this exercise a lot in the Gemara?
Yeah,
a lot you get this in the Gemara. Recently, I found a lot of researches that people do that are not Jewish even, about the advantages of learning Gemara, the technique of learning Gemara. It's like unbelievable.
Yeah.
I said, man, I gotta learn more. It's not enough. This is unbelievable. So, and this is in a way the job of your internal judge, right? Is not supposed to be cruel, but it's supposed to be precise. You need to be precise and to do things precise. And what does it mean to do things precise? Not to look for shortcuts, not to cut corners, not to round the corners, to do things the way they need to do. As I told you many times, you need to be at the place at 12, you'll be there at 5:30. Precise, so you won't be late because you don't know what's going to happen. So, if we're talking about judges and so on and so forth, so let's talk a little bit about the court of your soul, the bed din of the nefesh. So we could imagine or try to see the nefesh of the person as a court. The persecution says, you did so and so. The defense, or whatever you call it, the other one,
The defense.
the defense. Okay, fine. The defense says, yeah, but there were circumstances here, Mr. Law School, right? Yeah, there are circumstances. The judge listens,
Litigate.
but there is a difference between regular court to your internal court. A person is not supposed to put himself into a lifetime prison because of a mistake that he did in the age of 20, and so on and so forth. The past is an important witness, but the past is not the judge. The same thing with us. We need two witnesses, and then the judges decide what's going to be. And maybe this is one of the deepest messages that we get regarding tshuva. Right now we're in Chodesh Elul, so what more appropriate than that? The tshuva is not denial of the fact, it is changing the perspective with your past. The person says, this has happened, and I'm responsible to it, but does not have to be everything that I am. This whatever happened does not define who I am. From an existential point of view, this is a moment of internal freedom. Because as long as the person says, I am like that, he becomes the one who turns his past into his destiny. But when he says, I did so, you're already creating a distance between yourself and the act itself, and then that distance that you put is the distance that allows you to actually get the change going. That's what allows the change to happen. I told you this many times. If Bezat Hashem, one day you're going to have kids, if your kid does something bad, never said, you are a bad kid. He said, you're such a good kid. How could you have done such a bad thing? You define, if you're going to tell the kid you're bad, don't expect this kid to do something good because you define him as bad. The same thing happens to yourself. So now if we are talking about the city of refuge, that's the distance between the action to the person. And at the end of the parasha, there is the idea of the city of refuge. It's one of the deepest psychological points or ideas in the Torah itself. A person accidentally killed someone. It's a very severe act. But the Torah creates for this person a space in which he is not being persecuted. And why is that? Because the Torah understands that there is such thing between the action to the identity. A person could do something very, very bad without this action actually being his essence. I could do something bad, but that doesn't define who I am. I could say I'm sorry. But if that action defines who I am, I could never say I'm sorry, and I never show any remorse for what I've done. And so, Ir Miklah, the city of refuge, in a way, is the space when a person can stop, stay away. It's like the eye of the storm, right? Stay away from the storm, to look and observe what happens, to take responsibility, and to try to understand, how could I continue live after I've done what I've done? I mean, after all, you took somebody else's life. And so is in the life of the person. Your own thing. You need to have your city of refuge. Sometimes you need to go away from the noise, from the telephone, from the news, from work, from school, from people, even from your own self-story, not in order to run away from life, but rather to come back to life really the way you should be, the way you are, for who you are. One of the best places for your city of refuge is right here. Here, you're not being judged based on what you were or what you did. You can be who you are. You can change yourself, and that will take you out to other places in life. So if we look at the Kabbalah, go back to the Kabbalah says that the person is a small world, and what happens in the big world also happens inside of us. We have a king, we have a judge, we have an officer, we have chesed, we have gvura. There is chaos inside of us, and also there is a deep point inside of us that never breaks. And that is the nekudah, the point of the soul, nekudat haneshama. The spiritual work, the spiritual task, is not to create a person that does not have any darkness inside of him. A person like this does not exist. It does not exist. Everybody has it. The real task is to create with us, inside of us, a whole system, a whole apparatus where darkness does not run your life, does not run every aspect of your life. When fears don't run your life, the judge should see, the officer should act, and the king needs to be also obligated to the law. The same thing as we have the Supreme Court, we have Congress, we have the President, and so on and so forth. All these ideas exist within the Torah. The chesed needs to meet the gvura, the neshama needs to stay free. And again, what is the real judge? Maybe at the end of Parshat Shoftim, right? It doesn't really ask us how to judge others, right? The question should really be, who sits in the Supreme Court of my own life? Is it the fear or society? Is it my past? Is it my ego, as we said? Is this the need that other people will tell me I'm great? I need to be liked by all, right? Or maybe there is a place inside of me that is more quiet, deeper, that could really stop for a second and say, well, wait a minute. Just wait a minute. Take it easy. What is really the right thing to do? Not what is convenient for me to do. Not what everybody is doing or everybody is saying. Not what would give me confirmation. Not what would protect my narrative or my image. What is the right thing to do? What is the right thing to do? And maybe this is the beginning of all of us, right before Rosh Hashanah, which is a month from today. Not to become a person that is wrong all the time, but rather a person that is able to judge himself without hating himself. To put yourself boundaries without turning yourself into a tyrant, to take responsibility and not to become a slave of your own past. To choose again and again after you failed. Parashat Shoftim reminds us that society needs judges. Parshat Shoftim tells to your politicians, needs also police force. You can't defund the police. The world needs judges. The world needs police officers too. And a person needs also, we as humans need internal policemen and judges of ourselves. But our internal policeman needs to be the best one. Which one is? The one who does not punish us. The one who helps us come back to the truth. To the freedom, to the opportunity or the ability to start new. When the Torah says, tzedek, tzedek tirdof, it's not only in court, but also inside of you. Because at the end of the day, a person is not only the one who lives his life, but he is the one, mainly the one, who decides how to interpret life. And this is exactly where freedom starts. Shabbat Shalom and Rosh Chodesh Tov.